Why is the US giving money to Pakistan?
Because for decades, Pakistan created this narrative that it's a state which is too dangerous to fail. Any strategic development which kind of brings America's attention back there and they need Pakistan, then I won't be surprised if some form of assistance Pakistan gets there.
What are the Taliban's expectations from India?
Taliban in Afghanistan actually are behaving exactly how Pakistan behaved with the United States. Afghan Taliban, the Russians couldn't find, the Americans couldn't find. How will the Pakistan military actually go and fight them? So expectations, I think, are evolving.
Pakistan is one of the most anti-America countries on the face of this planet. If there were 10 countries which were anti-American, the Pakistanis would be in that top 10.
If one studies Pakistan, studies the crisis there, one gets a feeling that, my God, it has all the undercurrents of civil war.
Hello friends, welcome to GAP, the Gaurav Arya podcast. Today I have with me Dr. Shalini Chawla. She's Distinguished Fellow at the Center for Air Power Studies. And today we're going to talk about Pakistan. Dr. Shalini Chawla, a very warm welcome to our podcast.
Thank you, Guarav. Thank you for having me on your show.
Oh, it's a privilege to host you. Thank you very much. We're going to talk about Pakistan, enough content material there. But first, since you're from CAPS, and CAPS is an Air Force think tank, Pakistan wants fighter jets. And they want 5th generation fighter jets. That is something that India does not currently have, but Pakistan says we're going to get a whole bunch of them from China. My question to you is, every month somebody from Pakistan goes begging in front of IMF, begging in front of World Bank, a host of countries, give us money. We need money to survive. Then where are these billions of dollars coming from, which will enable Pakistan to buy? Because when you buy, you'll buy at least 2 squadrons of 5th generation fighter jets. It's not going to be 1 squadron, at least 2. Where is this money coming from? Where are these billions of dollars coming from?
Thank you. See, this is an excellent question. Pakistan's economic crisis that you see today, it's not something that we've seen today. It has there has been an economic crisis. You have always seen they've gone to IMF 25 times. It is heavily reliant on external assistance. About 72% of, the debt stands at 72% of the GDP. So the economic crisis has been a part of Pakistan's journey. And so has been the conventional military modernization. So military modernization for Pakistan has never been deterred because of the crisis. And that is where your question is, I think, coming, that how do they manage it? How do they get the money? So the phase that we saw post 9/11, there was enormous amount of US aid coming in, security related aid, through which they managed to get some equipment there. So, for the Chinese equipment, we don't have too many details because Pakistan is not transparent at all with its defense spending.
And neither are the Chinese.
So you have these two powers who are completely discrete. But whatever we know as per our, research and whatever the findings that we have is that the Chinese equipment is given to Pakistan on a very easy repayment basis. So long-term credits are offered to Pakistan. And why would the Chinese do that? Because, see, you have to understand why did China start giving equipment to Pakistan. The basic concept in their mind was that you need to make Pakistan strong to counter India. So the whole thinking which was there that, you strengthen enemy's enemy to win the war. So the whole logic that was there in the Chinese mind to prepare a low-cost option against India, and that was modernizing Pakistan's military and also giving its nuclear weapons. Your entire nuclear weapon program in Pakistan is from the Chinese. So money part there is not an issue. One is that. Second part is that large amount of, the defense modernization that we see in Pakistan doesn't come from the defense budget. If you see the details there, the defense budget right now is about 1.2% or 1.5% of the GDP. But that does not include the acquisition of the military equipment.
It also does not include the pensions.
So then large number of equipment is funded by what they term in Pakistan as the extra budgetary resources. And those extra budgetary resources are, in different channels, which are also reportedly from large number of these organizations like the Army Welfare Trust. You have these Fauji outfits. Fauji foundations. You know very well what kind of, the corporate ventures that they are into. So the funding is obviously from multiple sources that they get. So that never obstructs. So they would keep asking the money from the IMF, but the military modernization will not obstruct. They have continued to acquire the equipment, and they have also continued the nuclear weapon program, which is also not cheap. So you don't have a linkage with the crisis, and the modernization is not being impacted by the economic crisis.
Great. So this is what we have understood, that money is really not a problem because the Chinese, and there are two parts to this. The Chinese say that, okay, fine, it might cost you $2 billion, $3 billion, don't worry about it. Give it to us back over a period of 20 years.
Over 100 years.
Over
100 years also.
Yes.
And you have to also understand that the Chinese equipment is much cheaper than the US equipment.
Absolutely.
So, that part is also there, that it is a much cheaper equipment.
Yes.
But then I don't know how much of confidence Pakistanis actually have that in equipment, because when they have to fight the counter-terror operations, then they are always running to the US that, help us and give us the security assistance because we need to fight, go ahead with the counter-terror operations. So where is the Chinese equipment at that time for the counter-terror operations? So how much of confidence
I just think they find it easier to scam the Americans because...
I don't think anymore that's happening.
Not anymore.
But we'll talk about it.
Yeah. All right. So which brings me to this $450 million, may I call it a grant or a gift or help to the Pakistanis with their F-16s. So they said that here's a bunch of money, which is $450 million US, and go and modernize your fleet, go and change this and that, servicing of your fleet, armaments, upgradation, etc., maintenance and all of that. So they gave them money. Why is the US giving money to Pakistan? What is the hook there?
So US and Pakistan have shared phases of very strong alliance. 50s and 60s we saw it, then 80s we saw it, and when we saw a long phase post 9/11, which was dented after Osama bin Laden was killed in Pakistan, and we have seen a subsequent decline in that assistance, a very, very significant decline. Not only in the decline, but we also saw very strong posturing from United States, Clinton talking about snakes in the backyard, and in 2018, if you remember, Trump's first tweet was about how Pakistan is deceiving us, and now Trump again doesn't show any interest in particularly assisting Pakistan. So strategic requirement was at that time that US wanted space in Afghanistan. They required Pakistan's assistance and partnership. So the money was
for Afghanistan.
And the F-16, the money which came in was, for the maintenance of the F-16s which had come in. But I kind of related to the other events that happened at that time. And the most critical one was Zawahiri's killing. The operation of that stature could not have happened without cooperation from Pakistan. So there was some kind of, I think, return back for Pakistan's assistance in my mind that came in at that time. And now we don't see any form of promises of equipment coming in from United States. And I hope nothing comes from that side. But in the last 3 to 4 years, what we have seen that US has been talking about assistance, but they are saying we're going to assist you on the fronts of non-traditional security. So health, climate change, education, energy. But Pakistan has been very insistent that we need to revive the security assistance back into this bilateral relationship. And number of high-level visits have happened. They have asked for it in every dialogue, but nothing that we have heard from United States.
Because probably America is going to give the money, as you said, whenever there was whenever they've had these great moments of bonhomie and togetherness.
Absolutely.
That was always due to external factors and not typically Pakistani factors. Maybe initially Seato, CENTO, with the world pulling itself apart into a communist and a democrat bloc. That's a separate thing. I'm not talking about that. But even if you see the period between 79 and 89 when the Soviet forces were there, that was a separate dance that the Americans and the Pakistanis did. That was because of Afghanistan. 9/11, because of Afghanistan. You see, so I think that maybe the Americans may give them money or may give them weapons if suddenly Trump decides in the next 4 years that, hey, we have an interest in Afghanistan.
You are absolutely right. So American assistance will definitely depend on the strategic developments that are happening. Yes. And here I would like to just bring in a very interesting point, that how Pakistan managed this whole lot of Western assistance, American assistance. Because for decades, Pakistan created this narrative that it's a state which is too dangerous to fail. Because it's a nuclear weapon state. It has the supposedly a very rapidly expanding nuclear arsenal with 170 warheads, approximately that. And then it also has a raging insurgency on the border. It has the, on the belt, Afghanistan, Pakistan, there are also reports of the high, the terror organizations are there. So with this kind of terror outfits and the nuclear weapons, even if the world wants, Pakistan can't be allowed to fail. That was the narrative it felt it could cherish, and it did cherish, by the way. If you recall, there were these multiple debates that, how can Pakistan fail? But that narrative, I think, has got challenged now. Because there is a declined US interest in Pakistan because they are not in Afghanistan now. There is this hostility between US and China. The strains are at a different level. And bonhomie and alliance between China and Pakistan are also on a different level. And then India's rise has also played a role in terms of its economic growth, diplomatic profile, its partnership with the United States. So as of now, we don't see so much of interest of United States because it's also very focused on the Indo-Pacific strategy where Pakistan doesn't find a mention. But I agree with you that any strategic development which kind of brings America's attention back there and they need Pakistan, then I won't be surprised if some form of assistance Pakistan gets there. And that's what brings me to another point, that Pakistan will try and revive itself and revive its strategic relevance to be able to get that assistance. And we have to see how it kind of does that.
I was just thinking about this and I remember so many times where very senior people in our system in India have said that a stable Pakistan is in India's interest because it is the same argument that Pakistan cannot be allowed to fail. What if you have a nuclear weapon state towards your west that fails? And, I'm going to ask you about this also because very senior people gave me this argument and they said, what if the weapons fall in the hands of the Al-Qaeda or the Taliban or the Islamic State? And I said, sir, they already have. So what do you mean? I said, because Al-Qaeda and Taliban are not just organizations. It's a mindset issue. After the Lal Masjid was, stormed by Musharraf's unit, the SSG, when they stormed Lal Masjid, the response to Lal Masjid was an assassination attempt on Musharraf that was carried out by Pakistani Air Force personnel. They tried to kill their own army chief. There is immense radicalization inside the Pakistan army. And there are many people in Pakistan, even on the floor of their parliament, the National Assembly, who say that Osama bin Laden was a shaheed. That is the mindset. You cannot say that he's a bad guy in Pakistan because even the educated people will sort of rise up against you and say that, no, he was a great warrior and stuff like that and he fought against the Americans. So on one hand, you want money from the Americans. And on the second hand, you have a person, a most wanted terrorist, Osama bin Laden, for 5 to 6 years in Abbottabad. Similarly, this guy called Zaif, I forget his name, he was the Afghan ambassador, the Taliban ambassador to Afghanistan, and My Life with the Taliban, in which he writes in his book, and it's very evocative, he says that, and he writes in his book, it's written in Pashto, then translated into English, in which he says, My Life with the Taliban, he says that Pakistanis are people who have 2 tongues in one mouth, and which each tongue they speak a different language, they lie, cheat, and deceive. They take different forms. And this is a man representing a government I mean, Pakistanis were amongst, I think, the first people to say that we recognize the Taliban government. I'm talking about before 1990s, before 9/11. So they have this entire history of deceit. My question to you is now, I'll go back to Afghanistan, having said all of this. Pakistan says that Tahreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, which I believe is a terrorist organization, is attacking Pakistan. They're going back to Afghanistan. But they're also in Pakistan's tribal areas. It's not like every time they attack, they head back to Afghanistan, cross the Durand line. No. They're also there in the tribal areas. What kind of hold does the Tahreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, even in patches? I'm not saying they have a contiguous rule of 150, 200 kilometers, no. Even in patches, do they exercise control over areas where the Pakistani forces are afraid to venture into, let's say, the Pakistan Army or even the FC?
See, Tahreek-e-Taliban Pakistan has been a massive challenge for the Pakistan establishment. And relentless attacks are going on, and they have tried everything that they could do, deporting the Afghan refugees, closing the border posts, raising the tariffs, doing the airstrikes as well. So they have tried everything. Nothing has worked because Pakistan claims that it is getting the tactical, ideological support from across the borders, which is not unlikely because TTP definitely was involved and fully engaged with Taliban during the time of the US exit when the Taliban were fighting the Afghan forces. And the culture of Pashtunwali culture but they will feel obliged to return the obligation that's been extended. And also if they kind of take Afghan Taliban, if they have been under pressure from Pakistan, enormous pressure to take action against the TTP or not give them any refuge there. But taking actions would also imply that, you will have these fractions in TTP which would join the ISKP. So there are big problems there which, Pakistan military is dealing with in terms of pressurizing them. And whatever we know that you have about 6,000 fighters in the TTP, but then involving the families and others on both sides, it's about 20,000 people or maybe more. So they are there on both sides of the borders. And now there is an interesting phenomena which has come up that large number of checkposts were now vacated by the Pakistan military, and there have been reports that they have been taken over by the TTP on the border. Another factor which TTP has taken this very important step and development which has happened, that there has been a merger of TTP with a lot of these Baloch separatist groups, the faction groups. So they now have the hold in Balochistan also. So they had, the KP, obviously they had this control there, but they have got into, so Baloch, obviously the small fractions, I'm not talking about the most prominent Baloch groups, but the fractions, definitely the splinter groups. There is a merger and we have heard news of collaborated attacks there. Yes. So both the sides are benefiting with this exchange and, collaboration. So this is the stronghold is very much there, and Pakistan military is finding very difficult what to do. So if they take the actions, go ahead with the military operations, then they don't know how the Taliban are going to react because they took the strikes and they had retaliation from there. What's going to happen on the border? Can they afford the deportation right now of people, their own people? They are seeking money from IMF. With these operations, will they be able to take that money from IMF? What's going to happen there? And then on the other side, if they don't do anything, then Pakistan military's image right now went to all-time low because of Imran Khan. So this is a very difficult situation where they are, but then they have themselves kind of, I would say, dug the entire hole there. And Taliban in Afghanistan actually are behaving exactly how Pakistan behaved with the United States.
Yes.
Because in that whole phase of their, collaboration post 9/11, US kept on telling them that don't support the Al-Qaeda, don't support the Taliban, and Pakistan said, we are not doing anything. And exactly what you see the Taliban doing right now, that they are talking to them about controlling TTP and they're saying, we are not doing anything. So this is exactly what Pakistan did with the Americans, is something which Taliban is
They did the same with us also.
They did the same with us, yeah.
We said that don't support the Lashkar-e-Taiba and the Jaish-e-Mohammed and the Hizbul Mujahideen. And they said, no. These are non-state actors and we know nothing about this. So, the snake is coming to bite back.
And another point is very interesting, that they are aware of the fact that fighting the Taliban, I hope they're aware, is not a solution, because Afghan Taliban, the Russians couldn't find, the Americans couldn't find for 30 years, 20 years, Americans and Russians, about 10 years. So how will the Pakistan military actually go and fight them with all the complexities which are there with the ideology, terrain, and multiple issues? Yes. So yes, the problem is serious.
Now, I'm going to take you to Afghanistan for a moment. And there was a lot of celebration in Pakistan when the Americans went away. It was a messy exit as far as the Americans were concerned. It was almost like they were, breaking camp and running. So the optics at that point in time weren't very good. Now, what happened was, over a period of time, Imran Khan gave that massive speech and he spoke about ki ye zehni azadi hai, and the Afghans have now found true freedom of the soul and freedom of the spirit, etc. And he went on and on and on and on and on. And in Pakistani TV studios, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, MOFA, everybody was celebrating the fact that, okay, now Indian consulates will be shut down, their embassy will be shut down, and India will go back, and hence we will be safe, and Afghanistan will become, quote unquote, the fifth state of Pakistan, almost. So this is not to say that it will become the fifth state, but they were treating it like a fifth state. That is the Pakistanis. The opposite happened. India is back in Afghanistan. The Taliban are saying that we want to fund the Chabahar port to 30-35 million. And we've had people meeting us, senior people. I think Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri also met the Taliban representative and all of that. What are the Taliban's expectations from India? Because simply investing in Afghanistan and giving food and blankets and medicines and wheat and dollars is not enough. They're clearly looking at something more, because the hand of friendship has been extended by China. And China received Xi Jinping received their ambassador a few months back. So what is their expectation from India?
So expectations, I think, are evolving as the time is passing by. So initially what we saw was an attitude where we did not have the hostile attitude which we anticipated, because we have always seen Taliban as an anti-India force, a pro-Pakistan, I would say, force, which was basically, so we shut down the consulates, but we did not have any anti-India statements coming from Taliban. And 2022 we came back with the technical mission was there and humanitarian assistance was started. And then there has been a gradual engagement, evolution that has happened. So we sent that, then Pakistan's reluctance did not allow us was a deterrent in terms of sending assistance there. So we've used Chabahar port. Now we have also, India has also invited Afghan traders to use the Chabahar port. So there is a step-by-step, I would say, some evolution in terms of India offering the support so that, Afghanistan stabilizes. So our aim is to stabilize, because instability in Afghanistan is something that India would not want to, given multiple stakes that we have there, and also the people-to-people connect with Afghans that we have. So I think the expectation from the Taliban definitely are to kind of enhance this engagement, because we had about 500 developmental projects in Afghanistan. So expectation is certainly to kind of get back to the developmental assistance beyond humanitarian. So this is what we get, the feelers are there. And Taliban is definitely very desperate for recognition. And not only from India, but they are loud and, clear on those terms that they would want expect international recognition, but without compromising on their position on inclusivity and girls' education. So India, I think, is very much aligned in terms of recognition with this whole, at the international level, we are very much at the same position where other countries are in terms of granting recognition to Afghanistan, what we see as of now. But maybe we would see some gradual increase in the engagement on the developmental front. I don't know the official details because I'm speaking as an independent analyst here. But yes, the developmental assistance is something which Taliban are looking for.
Let me take you to America for a minute. Since 20th of January, when President Trump took over, the US foreign policy seems to have flipped. It's taken a 180 degrees turn in many ways. Now, how does America look at, or how do you think America would look at growing Chinese influence in Afghanistan? Because the Chinese are putting in money there, they're making inroads, and now the Chinese are doing it. Initially, they approached them with the help of the Pakistanis, because the Pakistanis, very initial days, the Pakistanis said, we own the Taliban, and they like to speak like that, the Pakistanis, that Afghanistan is an extension. Tell us what you want and we'll have it done, etc. Now, they have made their own inroads. And like I said, Xi Jinping actually personally met with the Taliban, the diplomat who had gone there. He met him and all that. He sat down, had a session with Xi Jinping, which is a big deal. They had a photo op, etc. Now, clearly, even without Pakistan, whether it is through the Wakhan corridor or using CPAC coming into Afghanistan, the Chinese presence in Afghanistan is also growing. How do you think the Trump administration would look at it, and what do you think they may want to do in the next 2-3 years so that they have a footprint in Afghanistan?
So first part, what you asked about, you were talking about the Chinese presence in Afghanistan.
Ji.
What I have noticed, Guarav, the Chinese make more noise than what they do in Afghanistan. So a lot of focus is on the visual, the projection. When Taliban came into power, if you remember, the photograph came with the Talibs standing with the Chinese guy there, and the photographs being clicked, then announcement of the fact that we have put in $3 billion in the, copper mine. That announcement has been there from, I think, mid-2000, 2006, 7. Nothing happened out of that.
Yeah.
So those kind of talks and a lot of these announcements have been there. But up till now, I don't know how much of it is really happening in Afghanistan. So investments are there. Chinese definitely are leveraging that space because Americans are not there. So they would like to leverage that space. They would want to use the Taliban to cater to their security concerns. That is definitely there, that the Chinese want from the Taliban. So but I always get a sense that the engagement is there, but not to the extent that it is projected. So what you said is very right, that he had a session, he had a picture. So these are all visuals, to optics. Tell the world. Optics. Yeah. So they work a lot on optics, inviting Afghanistan to join the CPEC. That has also been done for now 5 years. I think they've been talking about it. Yeah. So those are there. Now, how much are your second part that the US, I think US at the moment is not so engaged mentally with Afghanistan. And if you would also recall that President Trump also said that we would want the Taliban to return the equipment which was left in Afghanistan, which was close to about $7 billion worth of equipment, if you want the aid to flow at the same level. Now that is something it's not going to definitely happen. Taliban is not returning, but he said that. So you have these messaging coming very clearly from from the United States, that at the moment, they obviously are there. The strategy and the plan is there to counter China. So multiple other platforms are there, which is happening, the Indo-Pacific strategy. But Afghanistan as such, I think, is not a focus right now. Or I would say has the minimum focus for the United States at the moment. How things evolve, if something happens tomorrow, any strategic development, then I can't say. But at the moment, we see a much declined interest in the Americans.
So there is no focus on Pakistan? Or minimal focus
Minimal
focus on Pakistan, not no focus, but minimal focus.
There is focus. I won't say no focus on Pakistan, but declined interest on
Declined
Pakistan.
interest, yes.
And Pakistan-US relationship, to a very large extent, this people-to-people connect which they have developed over these long phases which they have had of partnership, that also brings a lot on the table. You would understand those deep connections and how kind of things function. So there is reduced interest in Pakistan. Yeah.
There is, but on this people-to-people connection, I'll just take a minute before I move on to my next question. This whole people-to-people thing is mostly because Pakistan allows their elite have investments in the West. That is what I've realized. So it's not like the common Pakistani has some sort of an interest in America or vice versa. I've seen so many of their army chiefs, so many of the 3 stars, when they retire, they go and settle there. They have dual citizenships. And I think they have very deep stakes in the American security establishment, because that is the people-to-people connect. Yes. It's not the common Pakistani who loves them, because there is, Pakistan is one of the most anti-America countries on the face of this planet. If there were 10 countries which were anti-American, the Pakistanis would be in that top 10.
The kids are studying there.
Yeah, the kids are studying and yet there. So now, Maulana Fazlur Rehman, a prominent Pakistani politician, Jamaatul Ulema Islami, and heads a whole lot of madrasas, can quickly mobilize street power, 1 million people on the road. Now, he says on the floor of the house that there are places in Balochistan, and I don't give too much of credibility to Maulana Fazlur Rehman because he has shot off statements earlier. What could the trigger be when Maulana Fazlur Rehman makes a statement saying that, there are places in Balochistan where if they declare independence, tomorrow the United Nations will recognize them as an independent country? I'm sure you must have heard that statement.
I read the statement.
It was slightly surprising because I didn't know where that came from. And where do you think that statement came from?
So there has been a build-up of frustration in this, Fazlur Rehman.
Yes.
And this you can link, I link multiple things. Obviously, he could not get political prominence in the elections, what happened to the party. And he has been in his, he was very supportive, or extended, if not supportive, but extended his support in passing of the 26th Amendment Act, which was passed last year, which changed the dynamics of the judiciary, and which was very critical in the minds of the Pakistan army, because they wanted to put in place this whole order to, see that आगे सब रास्ता साफ हो जाए उनके लिए.
जी बिल्कुल.
So Fazlur Rehman was a part of that whole, process, and he did extend. And then you have seen it's not only Balochistan, but recently Pakistan also passed the act regarding, which is called Prevention of Electronic Crime Act, which is targeting, what is happening on the electronic media. Any post which they feel is anti-state or disrupts the stability of the country will be kind of, there will be a punitive reaction to that. He has been talking about that also and saying that, this is targeting the journalists. Since when has he become the mentor or protector of the journalists there? But what we have seen from him is that he has now been opposing everything in the country, everything. So I think this was one of those, positions which he took just to add more pressure on the state. I don't see too much of seriousness here at the moment.
Okay.
I think it's one of those series of steps which he's taken under frustration.
You won't give it too much of credibility?
Not at the moment, because I find it difficult. Something like that happening.
There one part of Balochistan says we're independent, and the UN says, welcome, we were waiting for you.
I'm so glad you're raising this point, because on multiple forums, there has been argument that what will happen, there will be parts of Balochistan, there will be part of, but this can't, to my mind, if you study Pakistan, you see their nuclear arsenal. A large part of it is in those areas, the tribal areas. And you think the Pakistan military is just going to allow this to become a separate unit with the nuclear arsenal? This is not going to happen. It was kept there because of different reasons.
Yes.
But the fact is that area is not something that Pakistan military is going to allow. And how will that happen? You need an external, maybe some kind of a support there.
Yes.
But I don't see that happening.
Not likely.
Not likely in the short term. I mean, civil war happens in Pakistan, and then what happens, I don't know, because if one studies Pakistan, studies the crisis there, one gets a feeling that, my God, it has all the undercurrents of civil war right now. All the 4 provinces are disturbed. There is a politically, Imran Khan is writing letters to everybody, IMF, to then do the Pakistanis abroad that don't send remittances. Then you have the TTP, which is there. Then you have the economic crisis, to which there are no answers, with the debt being so high, although the GDP is shown some growth, but that is not in any form indicating you economic growth in Pakistan. Their continuous reliance on IMF, and IMF is tough this time, Guarav. You've seen in the past, we have not seen this kind of intervention from IMF, where they're setting their delegation to check what is happening with the corruption and the governance. There was a meeting of the IMF delegate with also the Supreme Court
Chief Justice.
Yeah. So these are very significant development, that there are no free, very clear indication to Pakistan that there are no free lunches.
Yes.
And you need to be accountable for every penny that's given to you.
Okay. My last question is going to be on Imran Khan, because we have to talk about Imran Khan. If you're talking about Pakistan, Imran Khan is in jail, and we had this conversation offline before we started recording, and you said, how earlier he was given various facilities in jail, now they're pulling back everything. Does Imran Khan remain a potent force in Pakistan, or is the strategy of the army, I'll not say the government, because clearly the government is clueless, but is the strategy of General Asim Munir and the Pakistan army that keep him in jail? He's an old guy, he's 75 plus. Over a period of time, people will forget. And once he's in his 80s, anyway, he's going to become redundant. वो खत्म 80 साल के बाद तो फिर वो थैंक यू हो जाएगा. उसके बाद what is he going to do? So is that the strategy that keep him in jail, keep him out? Because when I speak to overseas Pakistanis, and I've spoken to a couple of them who stay in the US and all that, they're very hopeful that Imran Khan will become the Prime Minister one day. Take us through this entire thing, and this is my last question to you.
So Imran, yes, I agree with you there. From your, the last sentence, you said that the strategy of the Pakistan military is to keep him out of the active politics. I mean, he is obviously a politician, but keeping him out of the active politics, keeping him behind bars, definitely doesn't allow him that kind of space which he wants. And now, with the latest acts, last 2 years which have been passed, and Asim Munir getting an extension, he will be the chief till 2027. Next elections are due in 2029. So before the elections, Shehbaz Sharif might just give him another extension.
Of 5 years.
Of 5 years, which makes him there till 2032. So then you are right, Imran Khan will be, his age will obviously not be, you comply with the active political role. And then definitely jitna bhi time aapka pass hota chala jayega. It kind of starts, and already I can get the feelers, because the recent actions which he has taken of writing to Pakistanis abroad that don't send remittances. This is something I don't think has gone very well within Pakistan, because remittances are not to the regime. The people are sending to their families to pay their electricity bills, which are exceeding their salaries right now. So you can't, you're writing to the IMF, don't give the loan. And it's without IMF, how will the IMF loan, how will the country survive? So Imran Khan's, I think the biggest problem which I have seen is that his sequencing is a big issue. So he has written to IMF, he has written to EU, he has written to the Pakistanis abroad saying don't send remittances, and then he claims that I've written to Asim Munir, where he's praised the army and then talked about talking. Where it should have been maybe the other way around, written the first letter, writing to Asim Munir, maybe should have been. So always you will see that his sequencing of his acts are something totally random. The guy doesn't think what he has. His popular appeal is there. He's still the most popular leader, despite the fact that during his time, the economy really went down the drains. He really messed up with the foreign relationship with the United States, with Saudi Arabia, with China, with everywhere.
He shut down CPAC.
He messed up everything. Still, he's the most popular leader. And he thrived on that, anti-military sentiment, which is there. But yes, if he is behind bars and he's not allowed to come out and actively engage anywhere, which he will not be allowed, is my sense. It's not going to be easy for him.
So basically out of sight, out of mind.
And then we saw the November protests.
Yes.
They did not particularly bring back the results that he was estimating.
They're pretty much fizzled out because the state's heavy hand.
So then, you subsequently we can see he remains popular.
Yes.
So he will continue to put pressure on the military, who under that pressure are actually continuing with these amendments. So there is an indirect linkage that I see there, because, they now want to control everything, judiciary, you have the media there. So now the control has been everywhere. The Army Amendment Act, the Official Secrets Act, 26th Amendment, and now this one for the Electronic Crimes Act. So you have what is happening, that it's taking this time to create this whole environment where the military now has the complete control on everything.
General Asim Munir is taking over. Slowly but surely. Over.
And there's a very famous story when Zia was there and Bhutto was there. Zia was told by one of his aides that kabar ek hi hai. So either you go there or Bhutto will go there. So in this case also, kabar to ek hi hai. Either Imran Khan goes there or
Asim Munir goes there.
Asim Munir will not go.
Asim Munir is the army chief.
He's the army chief.
Yes. All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Shalini Chawla, for joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, with Dr. Shalini Chawla. She is Distinguished Fellow in CAPS, Center for Air Power Studies, and we spoke about a lot of things, essentially Pakistan, but also America, also China, also Afghanistan. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. I'll be back again next week with another special guest. Till then, thank you very much. Jai Hind, and thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.